On September 7, 1947, Moscow celebrated its 800th anniversary. On that day, the foundations for 8 ambitious Stalinist skyscraper projects were laid simultaneously. Each building symbolized not only the power of the USSR, but also its drive toward modernization. The original plan envisioned the creation of unique microstates where residents could work, relax, and enjoy life without ever leaving the complex. However, after Stalin's death, only 7 of the 8 planned skyscrapers were completed. The 8th foundation later became the base for the Rossiya Hotel, and in the 21st century, Zaryadye Park was established there. These majestic buildings were inspired by American skyscrapers, especially the architecture of Manhattan, but featured unique Soviet symbolism and a focus on monumentality. Each of the 7 completed skyscrapers became a vivid symbol of post-war Moscow despite the financial difficulties and political changes that accompanied their construction. These architectural masterpieces not only adorned the capital, but also became important cultural and historical monuments. True giants of their time. But what lies behind their imposing facades? Let's continue our journey into the depths of their architectural legacy. When the term Seven Sisters is mentioned, many might think of ancient myths, but in reality, this poetic name refers to a series of majestic Stalinist skyscrapers in Moscow. Originally, 8 buildings were planned, but after Stalin's death, only 7 were completed, symbolizing the power and ambitions of the Soviet Union. These skyscrapers, inspired by American high-rises, combined the grandeur of Art Deco with the monumentality of socialist classicism. Each of the 7 towers became a historical monument, embodying an architectural style in which classicism is harmoniously intertwined with the ideas of Soviet ideology. This architectural combination gave the buildings a remarkable harmony of proportions and grandeur. The ceremonial laying of their main foundations took place on September 7, 1947, in honor of the 800th anniversary of Moscow. This became an important symbolic act, cementing the connection between architecture and the significant events in the country's life. These buildings impress with their abundance of classical elements, massive columns, rich stucco work, and of course, soaring spires that seem to point the way to a bright future. They become the central visual landmarks of the Moscow skyline, constantly reminding viewers of their historical significance and architectural uniqueness. However, behind this beauty were innovative engineering solutions of that era. Soviet engineers implemented advanced technologies, including monumental concrete foundations and innovative use of cranes and excavators, which was especially crucial in the post-war years. These technological feats helped turn the ambitious project's ideas into a breathtaking integration of classicism and modernism. And while we marvel at this architectural grandeur, let's learn about the incredible difficulties faced by the builders of these glorious skyscrapers. The design and construction of Stalinist skyscrapers required bold engineering solutions to overcome unique challenges. One of the difficulties was the unstable Moscow soil and the high level of groundwater. To cope with these conditions, builders used soil freezing and vibro-driven piles, which made it possible to provide the necessary stability for these massive structures. This was a period when high-rise welding was used on a large scale for the first time, which became a real breakthrough in construction technology. The innovative technique made it possible to erect the steel frames of skyscrapers with meticulous precision and reliability, which made the structures more stable and durable. Another important achievement was the use of self-erecting tower cranes, which were used on such a scale for the first time, greatly increasing the efficiency of the construction process. The Stalinist skyscrapers became a vivid example of Soviet engineering thought, despite a number of challenges. For instance, the need to regulate temperature fluctuations was addressed in the traditional way through double glazing and thick walls. These elements provided the buildings with protection from the harsh climate, which was especially important during the unpredictable Moscow winters. But how could these engineering and technological achievements influence the course of construction? This will be revealed by the story of the difficulties and triumphs encountered on the path to creating these unique architectural masterpieces. The development of the Stalinist skyscrapers was a true test of engineering skill. Architects Boris Iofan, Vladimir Shchuko, and Vladimir Gelfreich traveled to the United States in 1934 to study American skyscrapers. However, despite the knowledge they gained, unique challenges arose in Moscow. The bedrock of Moscow forced the use of innovative engineering solutions. The soil was frozen to reinforce the ground beneath the massive buildings, which at the time was a truly innovative approach. An interesting example was the project at Krasny Vorota. The skyscraper was monitored for deviation so that after thawing and settling, the building would remain vertical. This complex engineering achievement was accompanied by the integration of the metro station vestibule into the structure, which required outstanding calculation skills and organizational talent. A major challenge was maintaining the operation of the metro and city roads. This required special technical solutions, further adding to the picture of a complex and ambitious project where every detail played its part. The shortage of equipment and materials forced the use of manual labor and horses in construction, while the lack of engineers was exacerbated by mobilization and the reconstruction of other cities. The framework of the high-rises had its own unique features. The steel frame of Moscow State University and the reinforced concrete structures at Krasny Vorota. The buildings on Kotelnicheskaya Embankment, Kudrinskaya Square, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs highlighted the diversity of technical solutions. The building at Krasny Vorota, originally planned for the Ministry of Railways of the USSR, ultimately became home to the Ministry of Transport Construction. Thus, these engineering feats were reflected not only in the physical structure of the buildings, but also in their significance. But what about the stories hidden behind the walls of these structures? The myths and legends surrounding these monuments can be even more fascinating and mysterious. Such majestic Stalinist skyscrapers give rise to an unprecedented number of myths and legends. One of the most famous myths is the existence of a secret network of underground tunnels supposedly created to transport high-ranking officials in the event of war. Although there is no documentary evidence for this, these stories continue to capture the imagination of Muscovites and visitors to the capital. An interesting legend is associated with the main building of Moscow State University on Sparrow Hills. According to the legend, instead of the current spire, it was originally planned to install a golden statue of Stalin, which, however, was never erected. This decision makes the university an even more mysterious place, especially with its unknown design solutions and impressive height. There is a myth that the foundation of Moscow State University is supposedly filled with liquid nitrogen to prevent it from sliding into the Moskva River. In reality, this is a beautiful legend devoid of logic, since the basement cooling system is actually used to stabilize the temperature. Another well-known story is that the statues on the facades of the skyscrapers supposedly come to life at night and go for a walk through the streets of Moscow while the city sleeps. This, of course, is nothing more than a poetic fantasy that adds a touch of mystique to the image of Stalinist skyscrapers. Despite all the legends, these buildings were originally conceived as administrative and residential structures featuring the innovations and engineering solutions of their time. Their creation does not seek to reinforce the idea of Stalin's residences or secret facilities. Rather, the true history embodies the spirit of the era and the ambitions of those who designed and built them. But if the appearance of these buildings and their hidden stories are shrouded in a mystical aura, then what do their interiors conceal? How did they affect the lives of those who lived and worked inside? The Stalinist skyscrapers impress not only with their grandeur on the outside, but also with their astonishing interiors. Their interiors are a true ode to luxury. Marble and granite are used here, and the floors are laid with parquet made from expensive types of wood, often featuring exquisite patterns. The high ceilings, often reaching over 10 feet, are adorned with elegant stucco work, adding an extra touch of sophistication to the space. These buildings served as homes for the elite of Soviet society, high-ranking officials, renowned scientists, and outstanding figures in culture. Their lives here were arranged with comfort, and the interiors of the apartments were designed to reflect their status. Mailboxes built directly into the doors and sophisticated elevator systems, such as those in the Kotelnicheskaya skyscraper, make living here both convenient and prestigious. The apartments often exceeded 1,000 square feet, with spacious air-conditioned rooms, a true luxury for post-war Moscow. Although central air conditioning was rare, the engineering systems provided excellent ventilation and heating. Some skyscrapers, such as the Kotelnicheskaya, offered luxurious built-in shops and household services, as well as underground parking garages. A real find for city dwellers. And while residents enjoyed life in these luxurious apartments, there is still much unexplored hidden within the buildings. What secret mysteries do they conceal within their interiors? Secret rooms and mysterious spaces await discovery. Moscow's Stalinist skyscrapers are shrouded in numerous legends about secret rooms and underground catacombs. Despite the lack of documentary evidence for an entire network of tunnels connecting all the skyscrapers, some buildings do indeed hide mysterious structures beneath them. For example, beneath Moscow State University lies a vast underground complex that was used as a defensive headquarters. This is not a myth, but reality, highlighting the importance of these structures. Urban legends often mention secret rooms and observation posts on the upper floors. In particular, there are rumors about such spaces in the residential building on Kudrinskaya Square, but there is no official data confirming their existence. These stories may be fueled by the atmosphere of that era, when secrets were a part of everyday life. Another true mention is the bunker project in the planned skyscraper in Zaryadye, where it was intended to house a tank regiment. This development was confirmed by documents, although it did not include residential spaces or secret apartments. The underground structures were mainly designed for engineering and defensive purposes. They were not intended for secret movements or espionage operations. Elaborate myths about tunnels connecting all the skyscrapers are just part of urban folklore, with no confirmation in official sources. As for rumors about strange sounds at night and invisible inhabitants, This is fiction, a romantic part of Moscow's myths, with no real evidence to support it. Instead, the true history of these buildings is full of engineering marvels and technical solutions that capture the imagination. It may seem that all the secrets have been revealed, but the unique construction technologies used in these majestic skyscrapers are still waiting to be told and are ready to reveal other unexpected facets of Stalinist projects. Soviet construction of Stalinist skyscrapers was distinguished by a whole range of innovative technologies. Each building is unique thanks to engineering solutions adapted to specific conditions. One such achievement was high-altitude welding, which was used on a large scale for the first time by Soviet engineers to create reliable metal frameworks. This approach became a true breakthrough in the field of construction. The mystery surrounding the long line of skyscrapers is further enhanced by the fact that, under the building at Krasny Vorota, ground freezing was used for the first time in the world to ensure stability on Moscow's challenging soils. Solutions for water drainage, such as well point dewatering under the Ukraina Hotel and vibro-driven piles during the construction of the Leningradskaya Hotel, highlight the variety of methods used to stabilize marshy soils. One of the innovations was the top-down construction method, which was used at Moscow State University. Here, a steel frame was first erected, which was then encased in concrete. This not only sped up the construction process, but also increased its precision. The buildings also featured advanced ventilation and heating systems, which included complex air conditioning and purification technologies adapted to the harsh Moscow climate. The technologies of that time are striking in their innovation. While these engineering achievements were actively being put into practice, the skyscrapers became symbols not only of architectural grandeur but also of technical ambition of the Soviet era. However, their remarkable stories are only just beginning to unfold. How are these grand structures used in our modern world? The Ukraina Hotel, known as one of the symbols of Stalinist architecture, underwent a large-scale restoration and today shines in a new light under the name Radisson Collection. This place attracts not only guests from all corners of the world but also those who can truly appreciate the combination of historical splendor and modern comforts. Moscow State University remains a colossus of knowledge and education, continuing to gather the brightest minds from many countries, confirming its status not only as a skyscraper but also as a cultural symbol of the capital. A special atmosphere reigns on Kotelnicheskaya embankment. Elite apartments, neighboring with restaurants and offices, retain their historical charm and remain in high demand. Their walls have witnessed many stories, which have become part of Moscow's modern cultural landscape. A careful approach is taken in the construction and restoration of the skyscrapers to preserve original details and architectural features, making them true artifacts of their time. The buildings, erected between 1947 and 1957, were conceived as 8 monumental projects. However, the 8th skyscraper never appeared on the Moscow skyline. Instead, it was built in Warsaw, becoming the Palace of Culture and Science, a gift to Poland from the Soviet Union. Today, Stalinist skyscrapers are included in the capital's sightseeing routes, where tourists can immerse themselves in the atmosphere of the past, visit museums, cafes, and observation decks with breathtaking views of the city. Their history, full of architectural achievements and cultural significance, continues to inspire, remaining an important part of modern Moscow. Now, as we immerse ourselves in the modern era of these skyscrapers, it is important not to forget about the people who called them home and created unique stories within their walls. To listen to these stories is like uncovering a new chapter in the life of the walls themselves. In the Stalinist skyscrapers erected during Moscow's architectural heyday and symbolizing the power of the USSR, not only members of the elite lived, but also ordinary Moscow families. These buildings preserve the history of human destinies filled with drama and hope. For example, the famous skyscraper at Krasny Vorota became home to outstanding scientists and academics. Among them was Anatoly Alexandrov, a renowned physicist who researched atomic energy in the USSR. The atmosphere of these spaces, saturated with creative ideas, inspired great scientific discoveries. The residential building on Kotelnicheskaya embankment, one of the most famous Stalinist skyscrapers, served as home to many figures of the arts, from writers to actors. Actress Tatiana Peltzer lived here, and her apartment with its picturesque view of central Moscow was a favorite spot for friendly gatherings and creative discussions. Although the story of Aunt Ivanova with her blooming balcony is more urban folklore, her image symbolizes people's desire to create comfort and beauty around themselves even in such monumental buildings. It was said that such stories were an important part of the fabric of life at that time, giving the high-rises their soul and charm. Each of these apartments holds a piece of its owner's history. Their everyday lives and dreams are enclosed within these sturdy walls. These skyscrapers, originally intended to be 7, leave warm memories in people's hearts, becoming legends of domestic architecture and culture. Now, as we delve into the fates of these incredibly fascinating buildings and their inhabitants, an irresistible force of curiosity arises. What beats in the heart of our future? What new stories are we destined to create within the walls of these buildings whose past is so rich? Let us consider the prospects and the continued life of these unique structures. Moscow's Stalinist skyscrapers, popularly known as the Seven Sisters, became the embodiment of the ambitions and power of the post-war USSR. Laid down simultaneously on September 7, 1947, on the 800th anniversary of Moscow, they symbolized a new era. 8 high-rise buildings were planned as part of a grand project, but only 7 became a reality. The 8th tower was conceived as part of the Palace of the Soviets, with a grand 420-meter spire, but the project remained unrealized due to financial and technical difficulties. The architectural style of the skyscrapers, known as Stalinist Empire, combines elements of neoclassicism and Art Deco, creating a monumental and majestic appearance. These buildings were initially designed for various functions: administrative, residential, and public, and hotel purposes, which allowed them to become an integral part of the capital's urban fabric. The placement of the skyscrapers is not accidental. Each one is located at a strategically important point in the city, which emphasizes not only their visual but also their ideological significance. These buildings embody the USSR's aspiration to build a bright future, pointing the way upward with their majestic spires. The term socialist realism is more applicable to art and culture, whereas the Stalinist feast of abundant columns and decorative elements reflects the Soviet ideal of architecture. These giants have become eternal monuments of the era and a continuation of the idea of endless progress and the grandeur of the socialism being built. And while the symbolism and historical meanings of the skyscrapers remain subjects of discussion and admiration, the real question is, what awaits the architectural titans of our capital in the future? What forms and stories will they take on in the next chapter? The Seven Sisters of Moscow's skyline, known as the Stalinist Skyscrapers, were founded on the 80th anniversary of the capital on September 7, 1947. These majestic structures embody the Soviet Empire style, an impressive blend of neoclassicism, constructivism, and stern veteran might. Signs of ideological significance emanate from every facade, reminding us of the Soviet Union's aspiration for unprecedented greatness. Although the architects aimed for 8 buildings, the 8th structure remained only a project on paper. Nevertheless, the spirit of imperial construction continues to find its reflection in new designs. The Triumph Palace residential complex was inspired by the spirit of the era, yet embodies the modern age, drawing from the canons of Stalinist projects. It is a clear reminder that the past intertwines with the present, building bridges to the future. What lies ahead for these buildings that have become an integral part of Moscow's legends? Modern technologies are already knocking at their doors, promising the integration of multimedia and interactive elements. Potential museums, interactive spaces, and energy modernization, all of this looms on the horizon of possibilities. With the strict lines of the past, they are ready to embrace the future with open spaces and green technologies, anticipating the opening of creative areas within their massive walls. These monuments of time continue their evolution, adapting to the needs of modern residents and visitors of the capital. Invisible messages present new ways of mutual understanding through acts of creativity and culture, transforming them from silent symbols into active participants in the city's rhythm. In the future, their transformations promise not only to preserve the spirit of historical grandeur, but also to offer new horizons that will amaze viewers and inspire new achievements.